Hello and welcome. Well, we all know textures and patterns. There are tons of textures on the web. But this video is about graphic textures which everyone can create. Let's start. All you need is a drawing program that is able to generate grids and some basic shapes or primitives if you prefer, like square, triangle and circle. The first exercise will be a simple combination. I set up my grid with 4x4 square fields and create these primitives. Each of them has to fit in a field. Then I make copies and fill the grid as I please. So this is my construction, and the color layout according to my color scheme looks like that. Now I have my graphic texture and it's time for some patterns. Only this time I made a simple repetition 4x4 tiles. But this is pretty stupid because any program can do this for you. The next pattern is made with rotated tiles. And for the next pattern I mirrored the tiles. Now let's compare it with the previous pattern, and there's a bit of a difference. It's obvious that you can also combine these methods. That was quite simple, and I want to make it more interesting by adding some scaling. To do this I have to prepare my grid by dividing the fields into two of each direction. Then I scale the primitives down to 50%, and now I can also use this triangle. Finally upscaling to double size. So this is my construction with different shape sizes, and here you see the color texture. Let's take a look at the patterns. Okay, so far. A texture depends much on the shapes and the combination. You should always feel free to experiment as much as you can, especially at the beginning. Start with simple grids like I do. Too many fields like 12x12 or 24x24 will take too much time and thinking. Then this next method is called addition. I take all elements like before, but now the rule is elements may overlap. This will later lead to more complex shapes which you see in the color texture. But I leave some shapes untouched here lying on top to make it more interesting. All this gives a new and different look. I think the trick is to use small and large elements for an interesting result. But feel free with your own composition, and you will see the pattern makes a bigger effect. But there is even more than this. Let's see. Cause now I will use even bigger elements which I then have to crop. Means I position some elements a bit in the margin. This is here still non-destructive, but I'll crop them later on the color layer, which looks like this. You can see that these incomplete shapes are joining with others to form new shapes in the pattern. That gives you even more options than before. Of course, the next step is subtraction. To work non-destructively, I'm using white-filled shapes above the elements. Then on my color layer, I subtract them and apply my color scheme. And you see a much different behavior in the patterns. The options of addition and especially subtraction may lead to unexpected and surprising patterns, even when your grid is still a simple one. And please don't mind my color schemes, I know you can do it better. If you give it a try, you will need some time with the color selection. But you should always know that color is not the most important property of a pattern. It is always the shape that comes first. And it doesn't matter if it's just a primitive or even a complex one. So keep this in mind. Your texture and pattern can also be based on a certain shape, which you see here with the circles. Doing so gives me a kind of direction, and it saves a lot of time while constructing. You see, the variety of textures is almost infinite, and I could show you more and more layouts. Instead, I will show you yet another method, and this is for the lazy ones amongst us. But it may be pretty convenient on some purposes. Cause now I will use symmetry. I take just the half of my grid shape and then mirror the construction, which may look like this. Again, quite simple, but you know what I mean. Okay, that was a bonus. There's so much more I could show and tell you, but let's stop here. Now I have provided some VR scenes for you where you can study the behavior of the various patterns. The link is in the description below, so dive in if you like. What you saw were just linear graphic textures and patterns, but there's more to come, so don't miss the next video when I'm on my way to non-linear graphic textures. In the meantime, it's up to you to create better patterns. And that's all folks. Hope you enjoyed it and thanks for watching. Bye for now.